The behavioural approach explains abnormality through external events. All behaviour according to this approach is learned through conditioning. A psychological disorder, for example, might be the result of a learned association, reinforcement, or acquired through observation and imitation of others. There are both strengths and weaknesses of this approach. Before we can make a reasoned judgment of its ability to explain the causes of mental disorders, we need to identify and then analyse the advantages and disadvantages. One strength of the approach is that it can be tested in a scientific manner. For example, little Albert was conditioned to have a fear of white rats, which generalised to other white fluffy stimuli in laboratory conditions. Other studies have shown that a range of behaviours can be changed relatively easily using direct rewards and punishments and through the observation of other people's behaviour. Another strength is that therapies based on this approach, which attempt to help clients unlearn maladaptive behaviours, are effective, and they often remove or replace the abnormal behaviour relatively quickly. Another advantage is that the behavioural approach views behaviour as maladaptive, rather than seeing people as disordered. This might actually help to avoid the stigma associated with labelling people as mentally ill. A weakness of the approach is that the focus on external events and learning alone may be at the expense of considering other influences on abnormal behaviour, such as internal processes and biology. Another problem is that although this approach seems to provide a good account of the development of phobias, not all phobias can be traced back to a fearful event. Furthermore, some disorders seem too complex to explain through association or reinforcement. It's been argued that some fears might be adaptive and have evolved to aid survival in our ancestral past. For example, a predisposition to fear stimuli such as spiders, heights, or snakes that might pose a threat may have been passed on and become hardwired in our brains for protection. Although not useful now, the roots of these fears might be in our evolutionary past. It's difficult to explain why these fears are more common just using learning, which suggests that some disorders might be better understood using other or a combination of approaches. Finally, by focusing on the behaviour itself, the approach might provide an adequate explanation of the symptoms of disorders, but may not tell us the root cause. The avoidance behaviour, for example, in a phobia, might be only the tip of the iceberg, and there might be a deeper, more complex underlying cause that is not explained by this approach.